Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are taking a truly fascinating west to east journey right through the Holy Land, drawing directly from the meticulous fieldwork of Dr. Jeffrey Hudon in his Biblical Archaeology series. We're going to see exactly how extreme, unforgiving geography didn't just, serve as a passive backdrop, but actually dictated and actively shaped ancient history as we know it. All right, let's take a look at our itinerary for today. We're moving methodically through 4 zones. First, the swampy plain of Sharon, then Philistia's coastal strongholds, next, the rugged wilderness of Judah, and finally, the deep Jordan Valley. So, let's dive right into section 1, the swampy plain of Sharon. Now, when you picture a Mediterranean coastline, right, you're probably imagining prime, beautiful real estate, perfect for ancient farming and maritime trade. But the reality those ancient settlers actually faced, it was drastically different. The coast of the Levant has almost zero natural harbors, and the land itself was largely a waterlogged, swampy plain. This basically rendered standard coastal highways completely useless. But why was it so swampy in the first place? Well, this swampy nightmare was caused by a geological formation known as the Kirkar Ridge. Think of it essentially as a massive natural wall made of fossilized sea life running completely parallel to the shore. It was so solid you could actually quarry it like stone, and it created this impenetrable barrier that literally trapped groundwater and inland streams, completely blocking them from emptying into the Mediterranean, which resulted in massive, stagnant inland swamps. However, King Herod was not the kind of guy to let a little geography stop him. He engineered a wildly high-tech solution to this harsh environment, building the extravagant port city of Caesarea Maritima using absolutely ingenious methods. I mean, we're talking about constructing massive artificial inner and outer harbors using state-of-the-art Roman cement specifically designed to harden underwater. He even engineered a sewer system that naturally flushed out with the ocean tides and funneled in fresh spring water through a colossal aqueduct, stretching all the way to Mount Carmel. It really brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of Herod's ambition. He took a harborless, water-starved swamp and just through sheer engineering willpower, turned the whole shebang into a state-of-the-art ancient metropolis packed with freshwater pools, a theater, and bustling international trade. Moving right along to section 2, Philistia and its coastal strongholds. Heading slightly south into the sandy dunes of Philistia, we hit an area that is just perfectly captured by the author Amos Oz. He describes it as a place somewhat removed from the fiery, religious, and national conflicts happening up in the hill country of Jerusalem, yet it's holding incredible ancient secrets securely buried right there in its sands. And looking at the archaeological records, we see exactly how the Philistine culture arrived during the massive Sea People's invasion. They established a very specific, strategic type of dominance in this region by building their strongholds literally right on top of earlier Canaanite sites. So the crucial takeaway here is that the Philistines operated through 5 fiercely independent but loosely confederated epicenters: Ekron, Gath, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Gaza. They weren't some massive unified empire in the traditional sense. Instead, these 5 strongholds acted as a highly effective network that completely controlled this vital, arid coastal strip throughout the entire Iron Age. All right, jumping into section 3, the rugged wilderness of Judah. Now we're jumping eastward, passing right over the central hill country into a drastically different, utterly unforgiving environment. The ancient Hebrew word used here is midbar, and it's super important to understand. This isn't a sandy desert like the Sahara. It's a rugged, rocky, dry steppe land, fundamentally shaped by a massive rain shadow effect. See, the rain clouds blow in off the Mediterranean, hit the hill country, drop all their moisture, and then literally bounce right over this rift. That leaves this specific 15 by 50 mile stretch almost completely bone dry. And the topography here? It builds this wild narrative of physical descent, and it is absolutely staggering. The land just plummets dramatically from 2,500 feet above sea level near Jerusalem, down through this rugged terrain to an incredible 1,400 feet below sea level in just a matter of a few miles. Sitting at the absolute bottom of that steep descent is the Dead Sea. And to put this into perspective, it is a staggering 8.6 times saltier than the standard ocean, with a 33.7% salinity rate and reaching depths of about 1,200 feet. It is a truly extreme body of water permanently trapped in this incredibly deep basin. But what's truly captivating to me is how this extreme geography didn't just exist. It actively shaped famous human narratives. Because the terrain was so incredibly hostile, finding water and dealing with the sheer isolation became the ultimate historical focal points. Just think of the caves near the Spring of En-Gedi, where David hid from King Saul, or the Good Samaritan Inn, marking historically the only isolated spring on the notoriously desolate, dangerous road between Jerusalem and Jericho. There was even a site identified as Ir HaMelech, a literal city of salt, where ancient warehouses and a wharf were built purely to mine and process salt directly from the Dead Sea. And perhaps nowhere is human resilience against this harsh, rugged terrain more evident than at Masada. It's this striking, battleship-shaped mountaintop plateau standing totally stark against the Judean desert. I mean, it is basically the ultimate natural fortress. The timeline of Masada is pretty incredible, spanning centuries. It started out as an Iron Age refuge. Then, King Herod came along and fortified it heavily with walls, massive storerooms, and luxurious double palaces, basically intending it to be a foolproof safe haven if politics back in Jerusalem turned deadly. But its most famous chapter happened later, when Jewish zealot rebels captured it in 66 AD, which ultimately led to a dramatic and tragic final holdout against the Roman 10th Legion in 73 AD. Here again, the geography literally provided the stage for one of history's great final stands. Finally, let's look at Section 4, the Deep Jordan Valley. Moving north from the Dead Sea into the deep rift of the Jordan Valley, we reach the ancient city of Jericho, 1400. That is the number of feet below sea level that this Old Testament site actually sits. It holds the crazy dual title of being both one of the oldest excavated cities and literally the absolute lowest city on planet Earth. Now, you might assume a city sitting at the bottom of a desert rift would just be a barren wasteland, right? But the archaeological records show Jericho was actually a lush, verdant garden. Why? Because of Elisha's spring. This massive natural water source just pumps out a tremendous volume of water. And in the Jordan Valley, the golden rule is basically if you can add water to the equation, you can literally grow anything. And even way down here in this deep, sweltering valley, the wealthy elite absolutely found ways to thrive. Herod actually built an incredible winter palace in New Testament Jericho, split right across a dry riverbed. Archaeologists can identify his work almost instantly by looking for opus reticulatum. It's this highly distinctive, diamond-shaped pattern of wall blocks that essentially served as his luxurious architectural trademark. It was quite literally a stamp of extreme wealth placed right in the middle of an environment of extremes. So as we wrap up this explainer and reflect on everything we've covered, from the trapped swamps of Sharon to the arid strongholds of Philistia, all the way down to the salt of the Dead Sea, I want to leave you with this final thought. History isn't just a story about people. It's heavily about the stage they walked on. How did this dramatic clash between harsh, unforgiving landscapes and relentless human ingenuity, from pouring underwater cement to building mountaintop fortresses, permanently create the history we still study today? Thank you so much for exploring this geographical arena with me, and definitely keep questioning the ground beneath your feet.